Welcome to today's video and welcome to another monthly wrap up. I read, how many books did I read this month? I read 5 books this month. I started the 6th one but I haven't finished it yet. So let's go through the 5 that I have read. And as you might have seen at the end of last month, you guys actually chose my monthly TBR for me. And I managed to read 5 from that TBR list. I feel like I started the month really strong reading wise, but then I went to the Eras tour and I feel like I just wasn't reading as much at that time. So I didn't read as many books as I feel like I read. Because I started off the month strong and then in the middle I was kind of just on one book for like 2 weeks, I think it was, because of the Eras tour. So the first one we have is Tales from the Cafe. This is the second book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I don't know if that series has like a proper name, but that's what I call it. These books are basically set in a cafe in Tokyo, and this cafe is known for its time travelling element, and people go there mainly to go back in time, but you can also go forward, but I feel like nobody really does that. Not that I've actually seen yet anyway. Everybody so far has gone back in time to see someone, and we follow kind of why they want to see this person or what's happened, and we get a bit of their backstory, and it's split up into 4 stories. So it's basically like 4 short stories, but they all sort of link together, and I really like how that's done in both the first one and this one. And there's also a few rules about time traveling and everything. We get to see that. We get to see the customers traveling back in time and who they're going to meet. And then we also, throughout all of these stories, we get to see the background of the people that work at the cafe and the owners of the cafe. And it's just such a nice book. I actually think I preferred this one to the first one, but I don't know whether that was just kind of my state of mind reading it, because I would say they were very similar. And if you like the first one and want more of that, then I would definitely recommend going into the second one. I think they make really nice palette cleanser books because unlike anything else that I read, they're a completely different genre and they just tell such lovely stories that have deeper meaning going on as well. And there's like life lessons in here, but there's also relatable stuff, and I just really like how each individual story is told, but also how we see the story of the people that work at the cafe as well from the first one into the second one. And I'm guessing that will carry on with the series as well, since it's all set in this cafe. Also, when I was reading this, I found that I kind of slowed myself down, and I feel like sometimes I get so caught up in the next fast-paced book and is this book gripping enough, and it was just kind of nice to sort of chill out on that and just to enjoy this for what it is. And this is quite a nice book to do that with because I was just really trying to take in each story. The one thing that I will say is, because this is translated from Japanese, the writing isn't necessarily that flowy. Which is something I kind of remember struggling with when I read the first book, but when you're used to it, it's very easy to read. It's not difficult to read at all, it's just kind of something that you have to get used to because it's translated. So that's just something to bear in mind. But they are still fast paced. I mean, they're cute little ditty short reads. And I ended up rating this 3 stars, just a very solid book, and I think I do want to carry on with the series just because I think they're so nice. They're just such nice books, and I also feel very invested in the people that work at the cafe and like their whole story as well that's slowly getting revealed. And I feel like with every book you kind of learn more about the time travelling element and the rules behind it, and also the history of the people that have come before the first book even started. And I like that we learn more and more about the whole time travelling thing. So very solid read, and I'm really happy that I picked up the second one, and I do definitely want to pick up the third one at some point. The next one I read is All In by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It's the 3rd one in the Natural series, and if you don't know anything about the Natural series, it basically follows a group of teenagers who have a specialised skill of some sort, and they're recruited by the FBI to work on cases. And each book focuses on one case, but then there's also a big case going on across the whole series that we kind of get pieces of throughout each book. This was my favourite one so far in the series. This series to me just keeps getting better and better with each book I read, and I absolutely loved this. I loved the case that they were working on. I loved the whole setting. This was set in Las Vegas, and we had the casinos and the big fancy hotels, and I just loved that whole setting. And I loved seeing this group of characters that I already really like going into this different setting. And I like how with each book they kind of focus on a sort of side character and we get more information and background on them. So this one heavily focused on Sloane, and I really liked how we sort of saw more of her character and also more of her background. And the case that they were working on was so interesting. It was so interesting, and I literally still think about that case now because I was just so invested in it. I just thought it was so good. It was so good. And the ending of this one was everything I could want and more, because I feel like we got a lot more than I was expecting to get. And I just found this so exciting. From start to finish, literally so exciting. And I just hope Bad Blood, which is the next one, is as good, if not better, than this one, which I feel like is going to be hard to do. And I gave this a rating of 5 stars. I do kind of feel like it's slightly different because it's part of a series, so I'm kind of just comparing this to the other books in the series, but probably overall if I had to rate this as an individual book separate from the whole series, it would probably be more of a 4.5. but I'm gonna rate it 5 stars because I just really enjoyed it, and within the series it's definitely a 5-star book. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just how my brain works. And I would definitely recommend this series, especially if you like Criminal Minds, the TV show, because this is literally a young adult version of that. And like I said, I'm so excited for the final one. I haven't even bought it yet though, because I'm trying not to rush into it because I don't want the series to end. So I haven't actually got a physical copy of it yet, but I'm sure that I will do soon because it has been on my mind that I really want to finish it. And then I read Collide. This was the one that I was reading while the Eras Tour preparation was going on, and this is the one that took up the majority of my month. Not because it was a bad book, just because I was super busy at the time. This one we have Summer and Aiden. It's set on a university college campus, and Summer is studying sports psychology and Aiden is the captain of the ice hockey team. They're basically kind of forced together because she has to kind of study him for her project, and it's kind of giving Grumpy Sunshine vibes, and also the vibe that they don't really get on at first and they don't want to be doing this project together, but they're kind of forced into it. So it's giving sports romance, hockey romance, and this is very similar to Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. So if you didn't like that book, I don't think you're gonna like this, but if you really liked that book, I do think you would like this. I will say that for me personally, I didn't like it as much as Icebreaker. I think I just connected more with those two main characters. And there was something about the writing style of this that I didn't get on with as much as Icebreaker. I kind of felt like this lacked depth with the characters. I feel like there were so many scenes, like we went from scene to scene to scene, which I get is meant to kind of keep it fast paced, but I feel like they were such surface level scenes and we could have done with fewer but more in depth, and we would have learned more about the characters and kind of how they were interacting. And I feel like there were just so many scenes, like one minute we were at the library, one minute we were at the ice hockey match, like one minute it was just very kind of all over the place, it felt to me. I also think the characters felt very surface level, which is weird because there were difficult things spoken about, and both these characters did have some sort of background and history that they were struggling to deal with, but even when that got revealed it still felt very surface level, like it was just kind of spoken about and then just kind of ignored. And I feel like that kind of stopped me fully connecting to these characters. I rated this 3 stars because I feel very much like this was kind of like watching reality TV to me. Like I was enjoying reading it, but it very much felt like a reality TV book. I don't know if that makes any sense, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. It just was quite bingeable, but there wasn't necessarily sort of layers to the story. I do think if you're wanting sort of a light-hearted ice hockey sports romance and you did like Icebreaker, maybe give this one a go. Overall it was just a little fun read. Next we have A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This is the 3rd and final one in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, and the way that I was so excited to read this, and I have kind of mixed feelings about this. I did enjoy it. The amount I enjoyed it I think is very similar to the first one. I feel like the pace was very similar to the first one. The second one I found so fast paced I literally couldn't put that book down, and it's by far my favourite in the series. This one I preferred to the first one but not as much as the second, and after everything happened in the second one it felt very much like we were sort of starting back at square one with Evangeline. It was really interesting to kind of see how her character would deal in that situation. And I will say that I did really like who Evangeline became in this one. I think she kind of lost that sort of naivety that she had in the first one and a bit in the second one. We do really see her kind of character arc in this one, and I really like Jax. I wish we had more of Jax and Evangeline and their sort of connection together. I wish we'd seen a lot more of that in this, and I really liked the different points of views because in the first two we only follow Evangeline, and this one we got Apollo and Jax as well as Evangeline, and I thought that was really interesting to read. I think there's just a lot of questions I had at the end of this book, and that's not really what you want when you're finishing a series. There were just quite a few things which I could go on and on about but there were quite a few things that were sort of not spoken about or not explained, and I think when I really sit there and think about it I do feel a bit frustrated about that, just because obviously we've been taken on this whole journey with these characters and we don't have answers for some of the questions that we had the whole time. There was one scene in particular where there was a one bed situation and Evangeline wakes up in the morning and something's basically happened, but that was never acknowledged or explained in the whole book. If I kind of overlook all the stuff that wasn't explained, I did enjoy it. I had a good time reading it, and I also kind of think there might be another series of some sort concentrating on different characters, because this one very much hinted at that and kind of was setting us up for another series, but kind of like a spin-off series. So I don't know, I could be completely wrong, but I would be surprised if we didn't get some sort of spin-off series, because this one very much hinted at that. Also the epilogue I'm not happy with. I wanted so much more than what we got in the epilogue, but I was kind of left feeling a bit disappointed with that. But other than that, overall, really enjoyed this book and was happy to be back in this world, back with these characters, and just to see how their story was kind of concluded. And I rated this 4 stars. And then I read Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. This book follows Phoebe, and she's basically obsessed with true crime. Her father has just passed away, so she's moved back into his house to kind of clear everything out and get it ready to sell. So she's temporarily living there, and she meets her next door neighbour, and it kind of just follows her living her life. We get a bit of background about her and why she isn't that close to her dad, and her brother also comes to help her, and we kind of get their dynamic with each other, and then we get her meeting this neighbour and sort of building this connection with him. This book wasn't for me. I think it very much didn't have a plot. Like, it just feel like it lacked direction the entire time. And when I say we literally followed her living her life, I mean we literally followed her living her life. Like, there was no real plot other than she's a character that's obsessed with true crime, which I feel like just isn't enough of a plot. The thing that was the most jarring thing for me to read in this was the amount of references that were in this book. The amount of modern day references to songs, TV shows, movies. There was literally one on every page, and it was so jarring for me to read because it kind of felt like it was sort of trying too hard. It just really wasn't for me. I found her as a main character to be a bit annoying at times, and that's saying something because I feel like it takes a lot for me to sort of be annoyed with a main character, and this one I just found her kind of jarring at times. And as for him, I feel like we didn't really see him, we didn't really see his personality. We were kind of just told, oh, he's a bit shy, but he can be really fun, but we didn't really see that side of him. And I just feel like he was quite a bland character, and one that we didn't really get to see or know very well. And I feel like, again, we were told that they spent all this time together, but we didn't really get to see their connection or their dynamic with each other. I feel like we didn't really get that. I just feel like when I was reading this entire thing, I was waiting to find out what the plot was. And that just kind of never happened. It's quite literally following her in her day-to-day life. I ended up rating it 2.5. I don't know whether I'm going to move that down to a 2. On Goodreads, I'll probably rate it a 2. But for now, we're going to go for a 2.5. So they're the 5 books that I read. As for the book that I'm currently reading, can I even get it? The book that I'm currently reading is Good Have Gone by Taryn Fisher. I'm halfway through this, so I will definitely finish this either today or tomorrow probably. And I'm really enjoying this so far. This basically follows Iris, who is a twin sister, and her sister got kidnapped when they were younger, but nobody believes her and nobody has been able to solve this case. And this happened when she was about 15, and now she's an adult and she's determined to find proof that this actually happened. And to do that, she starts interning at a hospital for the criminally insane. I feel like it started off very fast paced, which is exactly what you need in a psychological thriller like this, I feel like. Because I was hooked from the very beginning. I will keep you updated about this on my other social media platforms. So if you want to know how I find this when I finished it, all my links and stuff are down below. But so far I'm really enjoying it, and I'm hoping we're going to get some twists and turns towards the end as well. But I will definitely let you know how this one goes. And before we end this video, we have Book of the Month. I think Book of the Month this month has to be All In by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I just absolutely loved this. Even just talking about it makes me want to reread this book. I loved the whole setting of this one. I loved the case that they're working on, and I just love being with these characters. This whole group of characters just has a special place in my heart, honestly. And they're those sort of characters that I honestly feel like I can imagine. Like, I can imagine what they're like, I can imagine their sort of characteristics, and I'm also really excited for the next one. But I'm also going to be so sad when it's over. This is definitely my favourite book this month. And that brings us to the end of this video. I'd love to know your favourite book that you've read this month. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.